Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Angela Pugh. My guest today is Monica Phillips with Friendly House in Los Angeles. So we're going to learn more about what they do, what Monica does, and how they have impacted the world of treatment and addiction recovery. Monica, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me.
It's great to be with you, Angela.
So tell us a little more about you and about Friendly House.
Well, I am the executive director of Friendly House. Friendly House is a nonprofit women's residential treatment center, detox facility, and we also have sober living. We were the first residential recovery program ever built for women in the United States. We just turned 68 this year.
Wow.
And due to our nonprofit model, we are able to offer affordable treatment, affordable detox, and affordable sober living, which is quite rare for not for the United States, but for LA. But in the United States, I still haven't come across a program that has such a strong point of difference as Friendly House does.
Right.
In how we work with women.
So when you do detox here, do you do medical detox?
Yes, it's medically supervised.
Fully medically supervised. Mm-hmm. Cool. Good.
And it's done in a really lovely residential setting. The women here do not feel like they're in a facility, if you will. They feel like they're in someone's really beautiful historic home.
I love that you point that out too, because I feel like a lot of people have sort of a misconception about treatment in general, where they think it's lockdown facility or it's sterile or hospital setting. Yeah. And most are not that way anymore, for sure. Treatment is quite nice and comfortable these days.
Right. And the house is huge, and we are able to handle 10 to 12 women at a time. And that's unique also. A lot of times other facilities are bigger. They have more beds.
Yeah, I was going to say that's intimate and cozy. I love that.
The experience of being a client is different.
Yeah.
And with having a smaller mix of women, each woman is able to have a lot more individual counseling and a lot more attention for her needs and for her situation.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
So how long have you been in this industry as a professional?
I have been in this industry, I've started working, I myself went through Friendly House to get sober 11 and a half years ago. And I started working here 10 and a half years ago in different capacities.
Nice.
So I started being a weekend counselor, and then I moved into being the assistant executive director, and now I'm the executive director.
So how has it changed in your years here, especially after coming through the program? I love those stories too, because it does give you a unique perspective, much more of an insider view of how things work and certainly how to improve, right? Like that's one of the keys to success for anybody, I think, is knowing the ways that we can do better and make our businesses better and what our clients really need. So you have a great perspective on that coming through. What have been the greatest changes?
Well, for 66 years, we were basically a sober living model. So women came in, they were drug tested, they were monitored, but we were much more, what would the word be besides strict? We'll just stick with strict.
Right.
Much more strict than other sober livings. Women couldn't come and go. They needed to be chaperoned. They had to put in passes. Those had to be approved. They did 3 groups per day, and those were based off a 12-step model. And Friendly House is very much affiliated and guided by a 12-step program. And that was all great for 66 years. But then we noticed that we started about 3 years ago, we started to get a lot of calls from women that couldn't just pay cash or just didn't have a credit card to come in. They had insurance.
Right.
And to be able to take insurance legally, you need to have a residential treatment license, meaning you need to run as a rehab. So it also was time. It was time. We had women coming in with issues, a lot of emotional issues, a lot of baggage, and we needed to upgrade. So we got our residential treatment license. We were able to help women that now had all different types of insurance. And now we're able to offer, psychodrama and life skill groups and individual process groups, group process groups. So it's much more diversified. It's deeper, if you will, as far as the scope. And it's completely well-rounded. So now a woman can land on our door. She can go through a safe detox. Then she can just step into the residential treatment program. And then she can move on into sober living. Where when I came through the house, it was just one track, just sober living. So I think that we've definitely improved culturally for what's happening, but also financially so that we can keep helping more women. We now also are in the process of getting a Kaiser contract, and also we are applying for Medi-Cal. So I want to keep the front door, I want it to keep getting wider.
Absolutely.
So that we can stay with our mission statement, which was that we will always help a woman in need, not just the ones that have insurance or not just the ones that have cash.
Right. I love that. When you say as sober living, you did 3 groups a day, what was kind of the core of those groups? Like, was it educational? It was 12-step, but not technically a meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
It was reading 12-step material, having volunteers come in and talk about their 12-step experience. But it was very 12-step focused. We still are very much 12-step focused.
Yeah, right.
But we now have more of a therapeutic approach. Everyone that works here has credentials, is certified. And so it comes more from a therapeutic angle.
And I ask, of course, selfishly because I have sober livings, and my sober livings also are a little more strict than most. And I love that. We do have a lot of structure, and I do have more requirements than most sober livings. But at the same time, it's very fun. And our core really is about that sense of community and connection, because we are invested in one another. It's not, I always tell people, if you want to be in a sober living where you are really anonymous and just doing your own thing and not being bothered, you will not like my houses, because we're connected and we do a lot of stuff together, and that is a requirement to be a part of it. But I'm always thinking about what are some things I could add, because I want to enhance their sobriety as much as possible, certainly at that stage of new sobriety.
One thing that we do that I don't see a lot of other facilities do, some do, but I don't see a lot of them do, is having a strong alumni program and having the alumni come back, engage, interact, mentor, be part of the current women that are going through the program.
Yeah.
Being that we are how old we are and how established we are, we have a really solid alumni program. And we have women that come to our Thursday night women's meeting, have 35, 40 years of sobriety that hangs out with the newcomer. So that makes it quite special. And it also is great word of mouth, about the program, because those women are now successful and they're out in the community and they're doing, they're living happy, healthy lives. They're women of dignity. So it's a great example for the current women that are here. And then it also gives them a community of women that they can call, reach out to, and just bounce things off of, that type of thing. So I think that's a little bit a strong reason that we are successful. And then it gives us a point of difference.
That connection to me just means everything. And part of it also is that in the beginning of my own sobriety, I think that was one of the things that allowed me to be successful in early sobriety, because I had a group of people that I was so connected to. And I always say, we were so busy having fun. I never felt like I was missing out on my old life. I didn't miss anything about my old life because I was just busy with my new sober people having fun, doing sober people things.
Yeah.
We went to movies together and meetings together. We did service work together. We were very involved in our 12-step group. And it was just fantastic. And I kind of created my house and the core of the houses really around those things, because I feel like it's what allowed me to be successful.
And I think that the female alcoholic, drug addict, that comes here a lot of times, and I include myself in that group, are very isolated. Our disease of addiction is a disease of isolation also. And so we go very inward. and dark and get to a point maybe where we don't go out and we're not having fun anymore and we're not at the bar or doing the club thing or all those things that really was attractive and fun and glamorous at some point is gross now.
Yeah.
So when I see women come in here and there is alumni and there's things that we're doing with them and they're going to meetings and they're in groups and it's very, very hard to isolate. It's kind of impossible.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I love that. That's exactly how I do it too. Where it's terrible if you want to isolate in one of my houses.
Rooms are communal. You know, there's no private rooms. Yeah. Everybody shares a room. The rooms here are huge, very comfortable, but it's important. Yeah. It's important. It's very, very easy and quick, even for someone that has long-term sobriety, to slip back into that zone of isolating. I think it's a muscle for us.
Well, and like for people like me, I'm an introvert by nature. So I'm kind of an isolator anyway, you know, and I'm an intellect. Like I love to read and research and feed my brain, you know, so I'm kind of a loner in that sense anyway. So for me, it's almost more of a challenge for me to continue to work that muscle of being connected because my go-to is to be alone and quiet and be in my head, which for an addicted person is a terrible place to be.
Right. But it feels so comfortable.
It's so comfortable.
The sickness of it feels so comfortable. Yeah. That's why we're such interesting
It's so
breeds.
funny too, because I can, certainly being a business owner too, like I can get really caught up in the minutia of business and work and personal development. Like I'm always working on parts of myself. So I can get in my computer and researching things and listening to podcasts or watching videos from entrepreneurs or personal development, self-help people. I love all of that stuff. And I literally could go in my house and lock the door and not come out for days and just be perfectly happy. I've got my dog. I'm happy there. And then I'll catch myself going, well, why is nobody calling me? Like, why haven't I seen anybody? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've really been locked in here doing nothing, like isolating, you know, and I have to catch myself and again, force myself, start reaching out. I need to get out. I need to go do things.
I think that's a really good point. And I think that is something that all recovery professionals deal with and should be aware of and be in tune with, of that our jobs is not our recovery.
Right.
Our jobs is not our identity, hopefully. And it's a big part of the pie, but it's, I have to work on doing my own recovery and working on myself and going to my own meetings and having my own tribe aside from Friendly House.
One of the guys, one of my house leaders said to me the other day, he said, well, you don't have to go to as many 12-step meetings now. You've been sober a long time and this is what you do all day long. You talk about recovery all day, every day. So you don't have to go to as many meetings. And I said, well, I probably should double up on meetings.
And that is the misconception.
Yeah.
That is the misconception. You know, you have double-digit sobriety.
Right.
Okay, well, you've got it down. And I think that people that have got it down with double-digit sobriety is because they invest in it and they work on it.
It doesn't matter how long I've been sober. I always have to be diligent in working on my recovery. I have to always be feeding the recovering part of myself. I have to always feed my recovery and make it bigger and stronger and better.
Absolutely.
So that when I'm faced with a situation, because you hear so often when people relapse that it's a split-second thing. Yeah. You know, like you're just in a situation, all of a sudden somebody hands you a drink and you take it. Like you hear all these different scenarios. So I want my sober recovering piece to be really strong and really solid. So when I'm in one of those moments, wherever that might happen, whether it is at a holiday company party or whatever it might be, if I have one of those moments that I'm faced with the drink, you know, I have to be strong enough to be able to defend my sober self.
Right.
So I have to always feed that part of me and make sure I have to nourish it and make sure it's good. Mm-hmm. So for you in your personal recovery, what was your first moment where you knew, this isn't quite right?
One that stands out, that really, really stands out is I was working for a very big corporation and I was in charge of doing licensing deals where we could get a celebrity or a rock band or an entity melded in with the brand's name and then be able to distribute products or what have you. And I flew to New York to meet with, at that time, the biggest band in the world to create this really huge deal for product placement. And I could not leave my hotel room. And I kept prolonging. And they needed to get back to Europe. And I blew that deal and drank every single thing that was in the minibar. Was ordering martinis and vodka basically around the clock and not putting any of that back out in the hall so that the housekeeping service could pick it up. I would just stick it in the walk-in closet. So then it got to a point where you couldn't walk into the walk-in closet anymore. Mm-hmm. And I went into an 11-day blackout. And when I woke up from the blackout, there was broken glass everywhere in the hotel room. I was injured. I had some cuts and I had taken some bad falls. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I really didn't recognize myself. And I remember very vividly saying, wow, what has happened?
Yeah.
What has happened? Who are you? I really thought I was going insane. I thought I had mental health issues.
Right.
Alcoholism was not a thing that came to my mind, but I was always really professional, very dependable. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't left my hotel room in 11 days.
Yeah.
So that was a big wake-up call, but it didn't stop me.
That's powerful on the alcohol side. Like, I think it's so hard for people to understand sometimes how powerful it really is. Like, this illness it's big. And when it takes you over, it is fully in charge. And I think that's something that's hard for people to really grasp, but it's so powerful.
It really is. And the morning, I couldn't get on a plane because I was in DTs. And I remember walking downstairs and sitting outside the hotel. And this was a really nice hotel in a very nice part of the city. And it was like the mute button was on. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear the traffic. I couldn't hear all the people walking around me. I was in my disease. And all I could hear and think and feel was fear of, I'm in New York and I have money and I have a credit card. I am so petrified. I can't call the driver. I can't get to the airport. How am I going to board the plane? Stuff that I would do in 30 seconds of planning, was so overwhelming. And that was a very big, powerful moment, Angela. I had crossed some kind of line.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what the line was. And it was terrifying.
So you didn't realize at that time, you didn't realize that it was alcoholism.
It was anxiety. It was my job.
Right.
It was my relationship that I was in. If you had a family like mine, it was all these other exterior things as opposed to how I was wired and how unhealthy I was on the inside and how I had completely shifted that drinking was the solution.
Yeah.
That was my solution.
So I say that all the time in my sobriety when I talk about relapse. And I think one of the big shifts for me in my head was alcohol was no longer my solution. I knew alcohol was my problem. So when I stopped drinking, I wanted to do everything in my power to make sure I didn't go back.
Yeah.
Because it ruined my life. Like, I could look at every single issue I had in my life and trace it back to my drinking. I was very clear what the problem was.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times with relapse, it's that perception that alcohol is still the solution, or drugs, that it's still the solution. And I mean, I'm so grateful that I just really, like, it was the problem. I wanted as far away from it as I could possibly get once I got to that point.
Yeah.
Which I didn't get there easily.
Yeah.
It was not an easy journey.
I really did not know that alcoholism was my issue until I got into this program here. I had gone through a horrific divorce and was very in love with my husband. And I was in my early 40s and I lost my business, my house, my stepchildren, and my husband within 6 weeks. And you would drink too, right?
Yeah,
Anybody would drink in
absolutely.
that situation.
Yeah.
But I could never go back
Talk
to
about
but-
justification.
Right?
You had plenty.
But I never could go back in my mind to, but you've been doing this for like 10 years. This has been longer than the marriage and the, you know, all that stuff. Only once I got here and I started to work on myself and really have people ask me really pointed questions that I allowed people to help me, because I was a fixer. You know, I was the fixer. I was the, you know, running the household and the
Right.
job, and people came to me and I would fix their issues on a, you know,
Yeah.
very materialistic outwardly way.
I was the one that needed fixing. Like I felt broken. You know, I felt like
Oh, yeah, I did too,
intrinsically
once I got
broken.
here, yeah.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
like what is wrong with me? But I think I was pretty clear that I was an alcoholic pretty early on. I would say long before my drinking was even out of control. I just knew, I always talk about the first things I recognized is that my relationship with alcohol was different than my friends. And I just noticed little things where like I wanted to spend more time with it than other people did. I did it more frequently than a lot of my friends did in my early drinking days, you know, but I just knew I did it differently. And I knew my attachment to it was different. I knew it was more important to me. So, I mean, I had my first thought, I wonder if I'm an alcoholic when I was as young as 24.
Wow.
And I didn't know everything that it meant to be an alcoholic at that time. But I knew I just did it differently. I knew I didn't do it the same as other people. And of course I got, you know, far worse 10 years later when I finally got sober. It looked very different than it did in my early 20s. But I just knew it had a different hold on me. You know, and of course I have a very different range of knowledge about it now. And hindsight's 2020, I can connect all the dots beautifully at this stage of it. But yeah, I always felt pretty clear. I knew I was an alcoholic. I was never a denial person.
And the beauty of being able, for me, once I did find recovery, was, oh my goodness, this is the answer to all that wackadoodle behavior.
Yes.
And to the way I would react to things. It was all untreated alcoholism.
Yes.
But I didn't know what that term was, untreated alcoholism.
Right.
Nor alcoholism.
Well, see, I felt the same way when I started going to 12-step meetings, right? Where I felt like my whole life was starting to make sense. Just like what you're saying, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I did that. That's why I'm like that. So when I was early on, I got really into the brain part, the neuro part of addiction. And the brain is one of my favorite things. I obsess about it. I love it. And I love it in the sense, certainly of research now and how much we're learning about the brain part of addiction and the genetics of it and how everything plays a role together. And I got so obsessive about it because that was the first thing that made me feel like I was fixable. You know, like I didn't feel like it was my fault entirely. I was like, okay, well, this is how my brain is wired. Okay, that makes sense to me. And that's why really I had all those alcoholic behaviors long before I ever took a drink because of that wiring and how my wiring is a little different than non-addicted people. So it just made me feel like there was some light at the end of the tunnel. And then my focus became, okay, well, I know the brain is malleable and I know your brain will shift and change to support you in whatever behaviors you're doing. So I thought, all right, so I have to make sure I do these behaviors because that's what will allow me to change as a human being. You know, stop lying, stop drinking, all these things that probably sound like common sense to a non-addicted person. But I just knew if I kept taking the actions that on a daily basis, slowly but surely, my brain was healing and it was going to shift with me to support my new positive behaviors. So it just made sense to me. I'm a very logical person, obviously, much more logical than I am emotional. So I just had to put it in those terms, but I loved it. I just felt like my whole life was starting to make sense to me once I was in recovery. I wasn't a mystery anymore and I wasn't broken.
It's such a cool feeling. It's such a cool feeling to have that feeling of you turned a little bit around a corner and like, wow, life is actually really beautiful and really cool.
And I'm not defective.
And really full. And I'm not, exactly, I'm not defective. I'm actually feeling broken, but I can be fixed.
Yes. So when you started 12 Steps, did you have any preconceived notions? I love asking this question because with doing this as a profession, not podcasting, but working in the addiction industry as a profession, you hear a lot of people's reasons why they don't want to do 12 Steps and why they don't want to do other things too. But I love to ask that because you get such a range of answers that are fascinating.
I had no idea what it meant. I was really like, what do you got? Teach me. What's that about?
Yeah.
I was very, very receptive and open because I was so desperate. And I found it fascinating. And a lot of times I hear with women that are early in recovery that they have a hard time connecting with other women. They don't like it. I loved it. I loved meeting women that were healthy and sober and confident. And it reminded me of what I had been a long time ago. But that had all kind of gone to sleep.
Yeah. I love that you just said that because I always think like I have to remember who I was before drinking took over, right? Because I feel like we get stuck in this thing where we think all of the terrible things that we did as a drinking or drug using person, like we start to believe that's who we are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not who I am.
It's not.
I was a whole human before I ever started drinking. And I was really kind and loving and generous. And I have to remember that's who I really am. My drinking life hijacked me for a little while, but who I am in my core is that really fantastic person that was present long before I ever had a drink.
Absolutely.
It's not my drinking
Absolutely.
person.
So I think that when we recover, we get to tap back into that authenticity of who we truly were. And for myself, I started to get to a point where I started to pretend that this is before, of course, I got sober, but I was starting to pretend to be the woman that I wanted to be. Really good actress, all that BS. And now that I'm sober, I feel like I am that woman that I've always pretended to be, that I truly am authentic with who I am. And if you like me, fantastic. And if you don't, God bless you and have a nice life. I don't get tripped up in that.
That's so true. Yeah. I get to be the person I always wanted to be.
Exactly.
And for a long time, I didn't think I was capable.
Priceless.
Priceless, yeah.
Right? To be able to feel comfortable in your skin, be able to talk to anybody, feel okay with it, walk away, and be good.
Yeah. Just to be comfortable is a beautiful thing because I was miserable as a drinking person.
And if we're not comfortable, right, Angela, as women in our own skin, then we don't have peace. We don't have serenity. We don't feel centered. We don't have that grounding, good, yummy feeling.
Yeah.
And I never had that. I've had that for 11 and a half years now.
Yeah.
But I really, even as a kid, I sort of knew I had potential and knew what I want, but I couldn't get there.
I could always see the big picture, and I feel like I had big picture confidence. Like I knew I was strong. I knew I could do whatever I wanted, so to speak, but I could never figure out all the little steps to get to the big picture.
Exactly.
And I couldn't follow through, right? I lacked a lot of those skills of just the persistence and working your way up and continuing to do it.
Well, I like immediate gratification.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to do something and I want to see it happen. And I want to do something and I want to feel a certain feeling. And so drugs and alcohol were fantastic because I got an immediate rush, endorphin, dopamine, high.
All the good stuff.
Boom, right away. And I still like that.
Yeah,
but I get it from different sources.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Now, like I would say for sure I get that from exercise and I get that from connection. Which is another piece of being an introvert too. One of the parts of being an introvert is craving real connection. I don't do small talk well. Like I want to sit down and get into it. Like let's connect on a soul
that's so
level.
Interesting because look at what we're doing right now, right? Like you don't present, or me looking into your big pretty eyes, you don't look at all like someone who's an introvert.
I'm such an introvert, but this is easy. It's just you and me.
Yeah.
And I'm good I'm articulate. I like to speak and teach, and I love to do all those things, and I'm pretty comfortable in that. But if I walk in, like I could speak in a group of 500 people and not even get nervous. But if I walk into a dinner of 15 or 20 people, it's like sheer panic. And they say, because an introvert wants to connect on a deep level. So when you have too many people to really connect with, then you shrink and want away from it. Because I can't go around a table of 15 or 20 people and really connect on that level. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, but really sitting here doing this, like people are listening, but not right now while we're recording.
Right.
It's just you and me. I'm really good in this setting. All right. Final question, because I know I've got to let you go. You're so busy. This is my favorite question of everything. What is you may have already answered it actually, but what is your favorite thing about being a sober person?
Just standing in my own space, knowing I'm there.
And liking it.
Super liking it. I like me. I like what I do. I like helping other people. In all the other jobs I've ever had, I had really great positions and have done some really great things, but I never had a job that made a difference. So making a difference. Wow. That's a really
big,
powerful thing to be able to say that I think that this job and doing what I do to help women regain their dignity and their self-esteem and get centered and find out who they really are, that's pretty mind-blowing. So that has been tremendous for me.
And what an absolute blessing. I think every single day that I get to do work that just doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
You know, like my quote unquote work is soul food. You know, it feeds my soul every day. It makes me so happy. And I just feel absolutely blessed and so much gratitude for that on a daily basis. We are
so blessed that we're able to wake up. This is the only job I've ever had that I like driving to work.
Right.
I think about driving, think about the ladies here, think about this one's doing this. God, I'm so proud of this one. She made it to this.
Yes,
you know, like I never thought of that with other situations that I was in.
Yeah. And I always think too, you know, all the people that we work with, certainly for me, I hope they have some understanding of how much they help me on a daily basis too, you know, because I feel like people don't realize that. And I'm like, you guys feed me every day. You know, you make me a better person. You make my sobriety stronger. And I learn from, I hope that those people that we get to work with understand that.
That's a really, really good point, because the staff that works here, our board of directors, since we're a nonprofit, the tribe, the village that makes Friendly House run, I really enjoy being around these people.
Yes.
I really like them. I learn to love them. I feel like they're part of my family.
Yeah.
And what binds us is this desire to help women, but they all bring something to the table. Each personality feeds me, helps me, encourages me, and I feel like I'm a better person because of them. And that's rare also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in a good place, but I wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for being able to be a clean and sober woman.
Amen to that.
Right?
Yeah. So tell us, okay, Friendly House is a nonprofit. So tell us where we can find Friendly House. I'm sure people would love to be supportive and do those things. How do we find Friendly House?
Sure. They can find Friendly House on Facebook. They can also go to our website, which is friendlyhousela.org. They can call us here at our main number, 213-389-9964. We are one of the very few all-women residential facilities in Southern California. There's not a lot of them, and reputable ones are even fewer. So we are very unique. And again, we're a nonprofit. It's not about making money off the women. It's about helping them and getting them to where they need to go. We always are looking for grants from foundations and donors and people that would like to be part of this mission, because it is quite unique.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Monica, thank you so much for doing this with me.
You're really welcome, Angela. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Yeah, and if there's anything I can ever do to help you, please let me know.
Yeah,
I'd like to
absolutely.
stay connected to you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.